The mysterious inheritance. John Carter never expected anything exciting to happen in his life. He was just a simple mechanic, fixing old cars in a dusty garage. His parents had passed away when he was young, and he had no close family, except for his grandfather, Richard Carter, who disappeared 10 years ago. One day, everything changed. John was at his garage, wiping grease off his hands when a black car pulled up outside. A man in a suit stepped out, holding a thick envelope. He looked serious. "John Carter?" the man asked. "Yeah, that's me," John said, raising an eyebrow. "I am Mr. Daniels, a lawyer. Your grandfather left something for you." John froze. His grandfather. The man had been missing for years. Most people assumed he was dead. Now, suddenly, a lawyer appeared with something from him. Daniels handed John the envelope. "You are the legal heir. Come with me." John hesitated, but curiosity won. He grabbed his jacket and followed the lawyer to a large warehouse on the outskirts of town. Inside, under dim lights, stood a massive metal capsule. It was almost 10 feet tall, with strange glowing symbols covering its surface. The metal was smooth and dark, unlike anything John had ever seen before. His heart pounded. "What is this?" he whispered. Mr. Daniels adjusted his glasses. "Your grandfather left no explanation. Only this note." He handed John a small folded paper. John opened it with shaking hands. The note was written in his grandfather's handwriting. "John, if you are reading this, I am gone. This capsule is your responsibility now. Do not be afraid. Open it when the time is right. Trust your blood. Richard Carter." John read the note twice, then looked at the capsule. What did his grandfather mean? What was inside? He stepped closer and placed a hand on the cold surface. It hummed under his touch. Suddenly, hiss. The capsule released a burst of steam. The glowing symbols flashed bright blue, and a hidden seam split open down the middle. John stumbled back as the heavy doors slowly slid apart. Inside was a girl. She had long silver hair, glowing blue eyes, and smooth golden skin. She wore a strange bodysuit that shimmered in the dim light. For a moment, she didn't move. Then her eyes snapped open. She looked straight at John and smiled. "You finally came," she said softly. Her voice was calm but powerful, like she had been waiting for him. John froze. His mind screamed at him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. The girl stepped out of the capsule with unnatural grace. She was tall and elegant, unlike any human John had ever seen. Then she spoke the words that made his heart stop. "You are my husband." John's breath caught in his throat. "Do you what?" The girl tilted her head, watching his reaction. She seemed amused. "You do not recognize me," she said. "That is expected. But we are bonded." "Bonded," John repeated. "Lady, I don't even know who you are." She placed a hand on his chest. Her touch was warm and electric. "I am Elara. I am your wife." John stumbled back. His mind was spinning. This had to be a prank. A joke. Maybe someone drugged him. Maybe he was dreaming. "This is insane," he muttered. Nope. Not happening. I don't even know you." Elara's expression softened. "You do not need to understand yet, but you must listen. You are in danger." John shook his head. Danger from who? Before she could answer, boom! The warehouse shook as a loud explosion tore through the entrance. John turned just in time to see black armored soldiers storming in. They carried sleek, futuristic weapons, and their helmets had red glowing visors. "Target acquired," one of them said. John's stomach dropped. They were here for him. Or worse, for her. Elara's eyes flashed bright blue, and she grabbed John's wrist. "We must go," she said urgently. "No." John didn't have time to argue. The soldiers raised their weapons. Bang, bang, bang. Laser shots ripped through the air, shattering metal crates around them. Elara moved like lightning. She pulled John behind a stack of boxes and raised her hand. A blue energy shield flickered to life just in time to block another attack. John gasped. "What the hell are you?" Alara didn't answer. She reached into the capsule and grabbed a small silver device. The moment she pressed it, a hidden door in the warehouse floor slid open. John's mind was racing. Who were these soldiers? What did they want? And most importantly, what had his grandfather gotten him into? Alara pulled him toward the secret escape tunnel. "Come," she said. "Your real journey begins now." "Who is she?" John Carter's heart pounded in his chest as he sprinted down the dimly lit tunnel, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Alara held his wrist in an iron grip, leading him deeper into the underground passage beneath the warehouse. Above them, the sound of boots stomping and metal crates crashing filled the air. The soldiers were searching for them. John had no idea what was happening. One minute, he was inheriting a strange capsule from his missing grandfather, and the next, he was running for his life with an alien woman who called herself his wife. This had to be a dream. A crazy, insane dream. Alara didn't look back as she guided him through the tunnel. Her long silver hair glowed faintly in the darkness, and her body moved with an unnatural speed and grace. She wasn't even breathing hard, while John felt like his lungs were about to explode. Finally, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, illuminated by rows of dim blue lights. The walls were smooth metal. This wasn't part of any old sewer system. John yanked his arm free and took several steps back. "Okay, stop. Stop right now," he said, holding up his hands. "I'm not moving another inch until you tell me what the hell is going on." Alara turned to face him, her glowing blue eyes unreadable. "There is no time," she said calmly. "They will be here soon." "I don't care," John snapped. "I just got attacked by a bunch of stormtrooper wannabes. You say we're bonded, that you're my wife. I don't even know who you are. Start talking." Alara studied him for a moment. Then, with a sigh, she took a step closer. "You are right. You deserve answers," she said. "But first, let me ask you something." She raised a hand, and a holographic screen flickered to life in the air. On it, John saw a younger version of his grandfather, standing next to a younger Alara. They were smiling, standing in front of what looked like a futuristic spaceship. John's blood ran cold. "What is this?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "This is your grandfather, Richard Carter," Alara said. "And this is me. We met many years ago." John shook his head. "That's impossible. My grandfather was just a mechanic. And you don't look a day older than in that image." "I do not age like you," Alara said. "My people live for centuries." John ran a shaky hand through his hair. "Okay, let's say I believe you. What does this have to do with me?" Alara hesitated, then said, "Because your grandfather made a pact, a sacred bond that was passed to you." John laughed bitterly. "A pact? What kind of pact?" Alara's glowing eyes locked onto his. "A marriage pact." John's breath caught in his throat. "You've got to be kidding me." "I am not," Alara said. "Your grandfather saved my people from destruction. As a sign of trust, our leaders formed an alliance with him. He agreed that one day, his bloodline would unite with ours. You, John Carter, are the last of his bloodline." John stared at her, his mind spinning. "So, what? I'm just supposed to accept this and call you my wife?" he said. "That's insane." Alara stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "It does not matter if you accept it or not. The bond is already set. That is why they are hunting us." John frowned. "Who's they?" Alara's jaw tightened. "The Zenith Dominion. A powerful alien empire. They have been watching your family for years, waiting for the day you would inherit the bond. They want me dead. Why? Because I am the last heir of the Valyrians, an ancient race that once stood against them," Alara said. "If we unite, Earth will have allies. If I die, humanity stands alone." John's stomach twisted. So that's why they attacked the warehouse. Alara nodded. Yes, and they will not stop. John took a deep breath. This was too much, too insane. He was just a mechanic. He didn't sign up for intergalactic politics. But then he remembered something, his grandfather's note. Trust your blood. John clenched his fists. Maybe he didn't understand everything yet, but one thing was clear. If these Zenith Dominion guys wanted Alara dead, and if they were willing to come after him too, that meant they saw him as a threat. John wasn't the type to run away. If they wanted him dead, he had one thing to say. Come and get me. He turned to Alara. Fine. You want me to trust you. Prove it. Help me understand what I've gotten into. Alara gave a small, knowing smile. Very well. But first, we must leave. She walked to a metal panel on the wall and pressed her hand against it. Hiss. A hidden door slid open, revealing a sleek black spacecraft inside a concealed hangar. It was small, built for speed, with glowing blue thrusters on its sides. John's jaw dropped. No way, he muttered. My grandpa had a spaceship. Alara walked inside, motioning for him to follow. Your grandfather was more than a mechanic, John. He was Earth's secret ambassador to the stars, she said. John took a shaky step forward, realizing that his life would never be the same again. And somehow, deep down, he wasn't scared anymore. He was ready. The assassins arrived. John Carter sat in the cockpit of the sleek black spacecraft, gripping the armrests with white knuckles. His mind was still struggling to catch up. An alien empire wanted him dead. His grandfather had been an ambassador to the stars. And now he was apparently married to a mysterious alien woman who could move like lightning and control technology with her mind. This was not how he expected his day to go. Alara sat beside him, her hands moving swiftly over the holographic control panel. The engines hummed to life, filling the hidden hangar with a soft blue glow. John exhaled sharply. All right, I'll bite. Where exactly are we going? Alara didn't look at him as she continued working. Away from here. The Zenith Dominion will not stop hunting us. We need to leave Earth. John's stomach twisted. Leave Earth. He wasn't ready for that. He had a life here, even if it wasn't much of one. His garage, his city, his world. But before he could argue, the ship's warning system blared. Intergalactic DETCTED. Multiple hostile unities AP Boroiching. Alara's glowing blue eyes snapped toward the main screen. Red markers appeared, closing in fast. John clenched his jaw. Let me guess. Zenith Dominion. Alara nodded. Yes, and they have found us faster than I expected. John looked at the screen. How? We came through an underground tunnel. Alara's expression darkened. Because I underestimated them. She pressed several buttons, and a secondary screen appeared, showing security footage from the warehouse above. John's blood ran cold. The black armored soldiers were not alone this time. Behind them stood something worse. A tall armored figure loomed in the background, wearing a flowing black cloak. His armor was etched with glowing red symbols, and his helmet had a cruel, skull-like design. John's gut twisted. Whoever he wasn't just another soldier. Alara's grip on the controls tightened. That is Commander Valen, the Dominion's top assassin. John's mouth went dry. Why does he look like the final boss of a video game? Alara didn't smile. Because he is, and he has never failed a mission. John swallowed. Fantastic. The screen flickered, and suddenly, Valen looked directly at them. John's heart nearly stopped. Did he just make eye contact with us through a camera? Alara's fingers flew across the controls. He has psychic technology. He knows we are watching. Valen slowly raised one hand, curling his fingers into a crushing motion. A split second later, the walls of the underground hangar began to shake. John's eyes widened. What the hell is happening? Alara grabbed his arm. They are collapsing the hangar. We must leave. Now. She slammed a button, and the spacecraft lifted off the ground. The tunnel ceiling rumbled as large chunks of rock began to fall. John barely had time to brace himself before Alara pushed the thrusters to full power. The ship blasted upward, cutting through the collapsing tunnel like a bullet. Flaming debris crashed down behind them. Then, boom! The ship burst through the surface, rock and metal exploding outward as they shot into the sky. John's stomach flipped as they climbed higher, the city below shrinking fast. But before he could catch his breath, the ship lurched violently to the side. "Incoming fire," Alara shouted. John's eyes snapped to the screens. The Zenith Dominion ships were already waiting for them in the sky. Sleek black fighters, their designs sharp and menacing, closed in from all directions. Missiles launched from their sides, streaking toward them like fiery spears. John grabbed the sides of his seat. "Please tell me you have weapons." Alara's fingers moved with inhuman speed as she activated the ship's defense systems. A series of blue energy turrets emerged from the sides of the ship, locking onto the incoming missiles. VZZT, VZZT, VZZT. Bright blue laser blasts chopped through the air, intercepting the missiles before they could reach them. But the fighters kept coming. Alara's voice was calm but urgent. "I can evade them for now, but we will not last long. They outnumber us." John's adrenaline surged. "Then let's even the odds. Give me something to shoot." Alara hesitated. "You have never flown a ship before." John gritted his teeth. "No, but I've played a lot of video games." "Close enough." Alara sighed, then flicked a switch. A holographic control panel appeared in front of him, filled with targeting systems and weapons. John cracked his knuckles. "All right, let's see if all those hours playing space shooters were worth it." The first enemy ship swooped in, lasers blazing. John locked onto it and fired. A plasma bolt streaked through the air, smashing into the enemy ship's engine. Boom! The fighter exploded in a burst of blue fire. John let out a victorious shout. Yes, that actually worked. Alara allowed herself a small smile. "Do not celebrate yet. More are coming." John's eyes narrowed. "Then let's take them all down." The battle intensified. Alara piloted the ship with grace and speed, weaving between enemy fire while John took control of the weapons, blasting enemy ships out of the sky. But then, a deep, echoing voice filled the ship. "John Carter." John froze. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Valen, you cannot escape," the voice said. "Surrender now, and I will grant you a quick death." John clenched his jaw. "Yeah, well, how about you go screw yourself?" A low, sinister chuckle filled the air. "So be it." Then, without warning, a massive energy blast shot toward them from above. Alara's eyes widened. "John, hold on." She yanked the controls, but it was too late. Boom! The ship lurched violently as the blast struck its side. Alarms blared. John felt himself ripped from his seat, thrown against the wall. The last thing he saw was flames consuming the control panel. Then, darkness. The truth about Alara. Pain. That was the first thing John Carter felt. A deep, throbbing ache pulsed through his body as he slowly regained consciousness. His head spun, and his vision blurred as he tried to open his eyes. The taste of smoke and metal filled his mouth, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear the faint hum of a machine struggling to stay online. What happened? Then, like a dam breaking, the memories came flooding back. The battle. The chase through the sky. The massive energy blast from Valen's ship. His breath caught in his throat. The ship. Alara. John forced his eyes open. He was alive. But barely. The cockpit was wrecked. Sparks fell from a shattered console, and the windshield was cracked but not broken. The emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows inside the ship's ruined interior. John groaned as he pushed himself upright, every muscle in his body screaming in protest. That's when he saw her. Alara. She was slumped over in her seat, her silver hair hanging over her face. A thin trickle of golden blood ran down her forehead. John's heart lurched. Alara. Hey, wake up. He reached over and shook her shoulder. She didn't respond. No, 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 no. Panic surged in his chest. He grabbed her by the arms and gently lifted her, shaking harder. Come on, Alara, don't do this. For a long, terrifying second, she didn't move. Then her eyelids fluttered. Alara sucked in a sharp breath and sat up with a jolt. John exhaled, relief washing over him like a wave. Oh, thank God. You scared the hell out of me. She blinked, looking around in confusion. Then her gaze settled on John, and her glowing blue eyes softened. We survived. Her voice was weak but steady. Yeah, John muttered. Barely. Alara tried to move, but winced, clutching her side. Her bodysuit was torn and burned in places, revealing more of that strange, gold-tinted blood. John swallowed hard. He had seen some weird things today, but this was something else. We need to get out of here, Alara said, her voice regaining strength. John rubbed his temples. Yeah, and go where exactly? We just crash-landed on an unknown planet and… Wait. John froze. Now that his brain was finally catching up, he realized something horrifying. They weren't on Earth. Outside the windshield was a sky filled with two suns. The horizon stretched with strange, jagged mountains and rivers of glowing blue liquid. The landscape was both beautiful and terrifyingly alien. John felt his stomach twist. Oh, hell. Alara followed his gaze. It seems we were pulled into a nearby planet's gravity field before impact. John ran a hand through his hair, trying not to freak out. You mean we crash-landed on an unknown alien world? Yes. John took a deep breath. Great. Fantastic. Just what I needed today. Alara turned to the ship's damaged control panel, placing her hands over the flickering screen. Her fingertips glowed faintly, and John watched in stunned silence as the console reacted to her touch. He cleared his throat. Okay. Gotta ask, what are you doing? Alara didn't look at him. Attempting to restore power. We need a distress signal. John hesitated, then folded his arms. All right. New question. What are you? That made Alara pause. She turned her head slightly. What do you mean? John gestured vaguely at her glowing hands, at her golden blood, at everything about her that wasn't remotely human. I mean, he said, you say we're bonded. You say my grandfather made some marriage pact with your people. But what exactly are your people? Alara was silent for a long moment. Then she took a slow breath. My species is called the Valyrians, she said. We are an ancient race, one of the first civilizations to ever reach the stars. John's eyebrows shot up. First civilization. Alara continued. The Valyrians once ruled over a vast empire, spanning hundreds of star systems. We were warriors, scientists, and explorers. Our technology was unmatched. But then, the Zenith Dominion came. John leaned forward. The same guys who are trying to kill us now. Alara nodded. Yes. The Dominion rose to power through conquest and assimilation. They destroyed any species that stood in their way. The Valyrians fought back, but we were too few. John frowned. What happened? Alara's eyes darkened. My people lost. Our worlds fell, one by one. In the end, only a handful of us survived. A chill ran down John's spine. So, you're saying your whole species was wiped out? Alara nodded, her expression unreadable. I am the last royal heir of the Valyrian bloodline. John's mind reeled. So when you said the Dominion wanted you dead, you weren't kidding. No, Alara said softly. They fear me, John, because if I survive, there is a chance my people may rise again. And now that you have inherited the bond, You are part of this fight, whether you wish to be or not. John sat back, rubbing his face. This was way above his pay grade. He was a mechanic, not some galactic freedom fighter. But then something deep inside him whispered, maybe you're more than that. He looked at Alara, at her glowing blue eyes filled with exhaustion and sadness. This woman had lost everything. Her home, her people, her entire civilization. And now she was fighting to stay alive. John took a deep breath. Well, he muttered, guess I don't have much of a choice, huh? Alara studied him for a moment, then gave a small smile. No, you do not. John sighed. All right, then let's fix this ship and figure out how the hell we get out of here. Alara nodded. Agreed. Outside, the twin suns sank lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. John didn't know what was waiting for them out there, but one thing was certain. Their journey was just beginning. The betrayal and revelation. John Carter had spent his life fixing broken things. Old cars, busted engines, malfunctioning circuits. He could fix just about anything with enough time and the right tools. But this, fixing a wrecked alien spaceship on an unknown planet while being hunted by an intergalactic empire. This was a whole new level of screwed. A desperate plan. John wiped the sweat from his forehead and tossed a broken panel onto the growing pile of fried circuits and melted wires. The ship's damage was worse than he thought. Half the control systems were fried, the navigation array was offline, and the power core was barely functional. Alara knelt beside him, using her strange glowing fingertips to scan damaged components and diagnose issues. Her silver hair shimmered faintly in the dim light of the cockpit. We need a new power stabilizer, she said, frowning. Without it, the ship will not fly. John let out a frustrated sigh. Yeah, well, unless you've got a spare one hidden in your pockets, we're screwed. Alara didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned her glowing blue eyes toward the horizon. There may be another way, she said. John followed her gaze. The alien landscape stretched endlessly before them. Vast mountains of jagged obsidian-like rock and rivers of glowing blue liquid. What are you thinking? John asked warily. Alara's lips pressed into a thin line. Before the crash, my ship detected an energy signature not far from here. It is not natural. It means there is a structure nearby. John narrowed his eyes. A structure? You mean someone else lives on this planet? Possibly. John exhaled slowly. And let me guess, you want us to go check it out? Alara met his gaze. If we stay here, we will die. John muttered a curse under his breath. All right, fine. Let's go knock on some alien doors and hope they don't kill us. The ruins. They left the wrecked ship behind and trekked across the strange alien terrain. The air smelled electric and heavy, like a thunderstorm that never quite arrived. The twin suns cast long, eerie shadows, making the jagged rocks seem even more menacing. John wiped sweat from his brow. This planet sucks. Alara walked ahead of him with quiet confidence. She wasn't even tired. Her movements were precise, graceful, almost unnatural. John was about to complain again when he saw something in the distance. A structure. It was ancient and massive, built from the same black stone as the surrounding cliffs. Strange symbols glowed faintly on its surface, pulsating like a heartbeat. John swallowed. Well, that's not creepy at all. Alara stepped forward and placed a hand against the wall. The glowing symbols reacted instantly, shifting and twisting under her touch. Then, the massive doors rumbled open. John took a step back. Yeah, that's not terrifying or anything. Alara ignored him and stepped inside. John sighed. Why do I feel like this is a bad idea? Then, muttering under his breath, he followed her in. The betrayal. Inside, the ruins were strangely intact. Metallic corridors stretched into the distance, lined with floating blue lights. The walls were covered in ancient Valyrian symbols. John ran his fingers over the strange markings. "This place is old." Alara nodded. "It belonged to my ancestors." John turned to her. "Wait, you know this place?" She hesitated. "I was not certain until now." John frowned. "And you didn't think to mention that before we walked into a haunted alien ruin?" Alara shot him a look but didn't respond. They continued deeper inside, moving cautiously. John's instincts screamed at him that something was wrong. And then, they found him. At the end of the corridor stood an old man. His hair was silver, his eyes a deep, intelligent blue. He wore a long coat lined with metallic plates, and in his hands, he held a strange, glowing device. John's breath caught in his throat. The man looked familiar. Alara froze beside him. "I do not believe it." The man smiled. "John Carter, I was wondering when you would arrive." John's pulse skyrocketed. "Who the hell are you?" The man took a slow step forward. "My name is Solomon Graves, and I knew your grandfather well." John staggered back. My grandfather." Solomon nodded. "Yes, and I know why you're here. You need a power stabilizer, don't you?" John swallowed hard. "How do you know that?" Solomon's smile widened. "Because I called the Zenith Dominion here." Alara's eyes blazed. John's blood turned to ice. "What?" Before anyone could react, a deafening alarm blared. The ruins shook violently. Outside, the skies darkened. Through the ruined doorway, John saw dozens of Zenith Dominion ships descending from the clouds. The trap had been sprung. They were surrounded. The revelation. John's heart pounded as he turned to Solomon. "Why the hell would you call them here?" Solomon's expression remained eerily calm. "Because, John," he said, "humanity has already lost." John stared at him. "What the hell does that mean?" Solomon gestured toward the skies, where the Zenith Dominion ships hovered like a silent storm. "They are too powerful," Solomon said. "We cannot win. The only way to survive is to join them." John's breath caught in his throat. "You're a traitor," Alara spat. Solomon sighed. "No, I am a realist." John clenched his fists. "And my grandfather, did he know about this?" Solomon's smile faded. "Your grandfather was a fool. He believed humanity could stand against the Dominion. He was wrong." John felt rage boiling inside him. "My grandfather believed in something," he snapped. "And he didn't betray his own people to do it." Solomon tilted his head. "And yet, he is dead, while I am alive." Alara grabbed John's arm. "We must go," she whispered urgently. John's jaw clenched. "And what about him?" He gestured toward Solomon. Alara's voice was cold. "Leave him to his masters." Solomon smiled. "I wish you luck, John. But the future belongs to the Dominion." John gritted his teeth. Then, without another word, he turned and ran. The ultimate battle. John Carter's heart pounded in his chest. The ruins shook violently as Zenith Dominion ships descended from the sky. Their sleek, black hulls glowed with eerie red lights, casting ominous shadows over the ancient Valyrian structure. Outside, hundreds of heavily armored soldiers moved into position, their red visors glowing like demon eyes in the dim light. Their weapons hummed, charged and ready. They were trapped. John and Alara stood at the edge of a towering platform inside the ruined temple, facing Solomon Graves, the traitor. John clenched his fists. "You son of a—" Solomon raised a hand, cutting him off. "You don't understand, John," he said calmly. "There is no winning this fight. The Dominion is too powerful. I did what was necessary to survive." Alara's glowing blue eyes burned with fury. "You betrayed your own people." Solomon sighed. "No, I saved them. You think Earth is free. You think humanity still has a choice." John's stomach twisted. "What are you saying?" Solomon turned, looking at the approaching Dominion forces with an almost reverent expression. "I'm saying," he said, Earth has already fallen. John staggered back. That's not possible. Solomon's eyes locked onto him, cold and unyielding. The Zenith Dominion has been on Earth for years, slowly, silently. Your governments, your leaders, most of them already serve the Dominion. John's blood ran cold. No, that couldn't be true. Alara was silent, but John saw her expression harden. Solomon continued, "Your grandfather fought for Earth's independence, but he was fighting a war that was already lost. You're a mechanic, John. Tell me, what do you do with something that's too broken to fix?" John clenched his fists. "I don't give up on it." Solomon sighed. "Then you'll die for nothing." John glared at him. "Better than living as a coward." Solomon's lips pressed into a thin line. "So be it." He raised his arm, and the Dominion soldiers opened fire. The battle begins. Boom! Alara lunged forward, grabbing John's wrist and yanking him behind cover as laser fire ripped through the air. Chunks of ancient stone exploded around them as Dominion soldiers stormed the ruins. John's pulse skyrocketed. Not exactly how I wanted to die today. Alara's eyes glowed bright blue. "We are not dying today." She raised her hand, and the temple's ancient symbols blazed to life. The walls shook. The air hummed with energy. Then, blue energy shields erupted from the stone, blocking the incoming fire. John's jaw dropped. "Okay, that's cool." Alara didn't answer. She pressed her palm to the ground, and the floor beneath them shifted. Suddenly, a hidden doorway slid open beneath their feet. Alara grabbed John. "Jump." John barely had time to react before she pulled him down into the dark. The secret weapon. They landed hard in a massive underground chamber. John groaned. "Okay, you really need to warn me before you do stuff like that." Alara ignored him. She stepped forward, eyes scanning the room. John turned, and his breath caught in his throat. In the center of the chamber stood a massive Valyrian war machine. A starship. Unlike Alara's sleek, damaged vessel, this one was ancient and powerful. It had massive curved wings that shimmered with blue energy. Its hull was covered in Valyrian symbols, pulsating like a heartbeat. John let out a low whistle. "Now that is a ship." Alara's expression softened. "This is the Argent Blade, one of the last Valyrian warships." John stared. "And it still works." Alara placed her hand on the ship's hull. The symbols flared to life. "Yes." John grinned. "Then what the hell are we waiting for?" Escape and confrontation. Above them, the sounds of battle rage. They didn't have much time. Alara moved fast, activating the ship's systems. The interior lights flickered on, and the engines hummed with life. John strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat. "Tell me there are weapons on this thing." Alara's lips curled into a small smile. "There are many." John cracked his knuckles. "Good, because I've got some payback to dish out." The Argent Blade lifted off the ground, dust and debris swirling as the ancient warship roared to life. Above them, Dominion ships hovered, waiting. The trap was set. But John Carter wasn't trapped. He was fighting back. Alara's fingers flew across the controls. Weapons online. John grinned. "Let's light him up." The sky burns. As soon as they emerge, the Dominion ships opened fire. Massive plasma blasts streaked toward them. Alara's hands moved like lightning, weaving the Argent Blade through the chaos. John grabbed the weapons controls. The ship's targeting systems locked on. BZZ-BZZ-DZZZ. Blue energy cannons fired, striking the Dominion ships with deadly precision. Boom! One enemy fighter exploded in a burst of fire. Another. And another. John whooped. "Oh man, this is the best video game I've ever played." Alara glanced at him. "This is not a game." John smirked. "Tell that to them." More enemy ships descended. And then, a shadow loomed over them. Valen had arrived. The Dominion commander's massive flagship emerged from the clouds, its dark hull glowing with sinister red energy. John's stomach dropped. Oh, that's not good. Alara's face was calm. We must destroy it. John stared at her. You do realize that ship is like 100 times bigger than us, right? Alara's eyes glowed. Then we must be faster. She pushed the engines to full power. The final battle had begun. The final choice and new beginning. The sky burns. The argent blade shot through the stormy heavens, its sleek Valyrian frame cutting through the chaos like a knife. Plasma blasts sizzled past, and enemy ships swarmed, forming a net of death around them. At the center of it all loomed Valen's flagship, a monstrous black-red fortress in the sky. It was 10 times the size of their ship, bristling with turrets, heavy cannons, and shielded hangars filled with Dominion fighters. A floating war machine designed to crush rebellions before they even began. Inside the cockpit, John Carter's fingers tightened around the weapons controls. His mind screamed that this was suicide, but his heart refused to run. Beside him, Alara's glowing blue eyes burned with an intensity he had never seen before. "This is our only chance," she said. "We destroy Valen's ship, or we die here." John took a deep breath, ignoring the sweat on his brow. "All right," he said, forcing a grin. "Let's break this thing apart." The dogfight. As if sensing their intent, Dominion fighters swarmed toward them. John's targeting system flashed red. 15 enemy ships. No, 20. No, 30. "Oh, that's a lot," John muttered. "Alara, tell me this thing has some secret superweapon." Alara pressed a sequence of glowing symbols, and the ship hummed with new energy. "We are the superweapon," she said. John's console lit up with new targeting options. His grin widened. Hell yeah. He grabbed the controls and opened fire. BZZT, BZZT, BZZT. The Argent Blade's plasma cannons roared, sending blinding blue beams tearing through the Dominion fleet. Boom! An enemy fighter exploded in flames. Another spiraled out of control before crashing into a second ship. But for every ship they took down, more replaced them. John's fingers flew over the controls, weaving through the chaos. "Alara, we're getting swarmed over here." "I know," she said, voice tense. Then she pressed a single glowing button. The ship shimmered, then vanished. John's jaw dropped. "Wait, did we just—" "Cloaking system," Alara said. John let out a breathless laugh. "Oh, I love this ship." The Dominion fighters spun in confusion, their sensors struggling to track them. For a moment, they had the advantage. But Valen wasn't fooled. Valen strikes. Inside his massive command center, Commander Valen watched the battlefield unfold. He stood like a statue of death, his dark armor etched with crimson symbols, his helmet concealing his face. One of his officers turned. "Sir, they've cloaked. We've lost them." Valen's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Then burn the sky." The officer hesitated. "But sir, our own forces are still in the air." Valen's voice turned ice-cold. "Burn the sky." The massive cannons on his flagship began to charge. John's console blared a warning. Alara, big problem." Alara's eyes narrowed. "They are preparing a planetary bombardment." John's heart stopped. "You mean—" "They will burn everything," she said. "The planet, their own soldiers, everything." John's throat tightened. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was genocide. Alara's fingers clenched the controls. "We must disable the flagship now." John's mind raced. "Then we need to hit something important. Where's their weakest point?" Alara's eyes flashed. "The main reactor." John nodded. "All right. How do we get in?" Alara turned to him. "We fly straight into it." John blinked. "That's insane." Alara didn't smile. "Do you have a better plan?" John exhaled. "Nope. Let's do it." The final run. The Argent blade decloaked, right in front of Valen's flagship. The Dominion cannons immediately locked onto them. "Hold on," Alara shouted. John gritted his teeth as the ship plunged toward the flagship's hull, dodging massive laser blasts. Boom! One shot barely missed, shaking the entire ship. John cursed. "Shields at 30%. We can't take another hit like that." Alara's eyes were cold, determined. "Then we will not get hit." She angled the ship sharply, diving through a narrow trench along the flagship's surface. John's console beeped. The reactor core was dead ahead. "This is it," John shouted. Alara pressed a single button. Firing main cannon. A massive energy beam erupted from the ship's front, blasting through layers of armor. The reactor core was now exposed. John locked onto it. Then, in that moment, Valen's voice echoed through the ship's comms. "You have fought well, John Carter, but you are still a fool." John clenched his fists. "And you talk too much." He slammed the trigger. Boom! The shot pierced the reactor. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then, fire. The flagship erupted in a chain of violent explosions. The end of the Zenith flagship. John and Alara's ship rocketed away as the flagship tore itself apart from the inside. Flaming debris rained down like falling stars. The remaining Dominion ships hesitated. Then, they fled. John let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. They had won. He turned to Alara, grinning. "Told you we could do it." She studied him for a long moment. Then, to his shock, she smiled. "A bond forged in battle is stronger than any oath." John chuckled. "Does that mean we're actually married now?" Alara tilted her head. "You still do not accept the bond." John hesitated. He had spent his life alone, fixing broken things. But Alara wasn't broken. She was fire and light, and something worth fighting for. He took a deep breath. "You know what? Yeah, I accept." Alara's smile deepened. "Then let us go. The stars await us." Epilogue. The future of the rebellion. As the Argent blade disappeared into hyperspace, a new battle began. The Zenith Dominion was wounded, but not defeated. John Carter wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was a warrior, a rebel, a husband. And maybe, just maybe, he was the beginning of something even greater. The legend had only just begun.